Good afternoon and welcome to today's AdWeek webinar, where we'll be talking about where agencies and brands stand on YouTube and CTV. Today's webinar is sponsored by Pixability. I'm Danielle Moore, Senior Manager here with AdWeek's Content Studio, and I will be your host today. Before we begin, I do want to take a minute to make sure everyone knows what to expect from today's event and is familiar with the features of our platform here. The actual presentation should go somewhere in the 30 to 35 minute range, after which we're going to have time for audience Q&A. So if at any point you have a question for one of our speakers, just use that Q&A tool right beneath the video window on your screen, and we'll get to as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. Also, it's definitely not too late to invite your colleagues to join us today. And about 15 minutes ago, you should have received a final reminder email from us. In there, you can find a link to the registration page you can share with them. Still plenty of time for them to join us live today, but if they can't, today's webinar is being recorded and they can always catch that on-demand version. In fact, that recording is going to be available to all registrants, and we'll send you a link to that later today when it's live around 3:30 Eastern or so. And if you would like a PDF of today's slides, you can find those in the event resources area right beneath the video window on your screen. As always, if you enjoyed today's webinar, be sure to check out our upcoming events at adweek.com/webinars, also linked below. And also in that event resources area, you can find links to AdWeek's resource library and microlearning videos. New guides, white papers, and videos are all added regularly. So if you're looking for other ways to stay up to date, be sure to check all of that out. Now, let me introduce you to today's speakers. We're happy to be joined by Tam Alisi, CEO at Media Plus North America. Tam leads Media Plus North America, the largest independent and partner-managed media agency in Europe. Her 25 years of experience includes overseeing award-winning campaigns for clients such as Apple, L'Oreal, and DeLonghi. We're also pleased to welcome Jess Goon, CMO at Tate's Bake Shop. Jess leads marketing at Tate's Bake Shop, and prior to joining the brand, she served as Chief Growth Officer at Spring Foods and VP Digital Marketing and Consumer Experience at Kind Snacks. And finally, we're pleased to welcome back Matt Duffy, CMO at Pixability. Matt leads marketing strategy for YouTube software and insights company Pixability, which is the only company certified by the YouTube measurement program for both brand suitability and contextual targeting and YouTube content insights. All right, we've got a lot of great content to dive into today, so let me bring our speakers up on screen here to get us started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having
Danielle.
us.
Thank you.
So good to be here. And I am super excited to be here with these two. They're two of my favorite industry leaders, and to talk a little bit about what we all think is happening with YouTube and CTV going into the new year, almost at the new year, which is crazy, right? I'm going to let each of them do a very quick intro. Danielle gave a good intro, but Tam, I'd love to just quick intro and a little bit about Media Plus for those that haven't worked with you.
Yeah, so excited to be here, everybody. Hello, I'm Tam Alisi, and I am CEO of Media Plus. Media Plus is, the best way to explain us is I think we're a strategic growth partner. Yes, we're doing media planning and buying, of course, but we're really here to help our partners grow, and that's where we push forward. So nice to see everybody. Hello.
And Jess.
Hi, everyone. So I am very lucky to get to work on Tate's Bake Shop, the best chocolate chip cookie in at least the US. But prior to Tate's, as the team mentioned, I got to work at Kind Snacks, and I actually started working with Pixability over 10 years ago when I was at Avon. So have had the chance to work with Pixability and really work on YouTube for over a decade. So really excited to be here and chat with you all today.
Yeah, and these two are gonna do most of the talking. You guys won't hear from me as much, but I'm gonna hopefully move the conversation along. For those of you that don't know Pixability, just a quick view of what we do. We're a third-party YouTube software and insights company that can help agencies or brands with running YouTube and CTV campaigns. And there's basically two ways you can work with us. You can either, if you're running the campaigns yourself, we can help you with brand suitable inventory. If you have a much more complex campaign that needs a lot more help, that's where we can do sort of full service solutions on our proprietary platform. So that's how you work with us. And just a quick sense, and Danielle mentioned this in the upfront, but we're the only third party that's certified for brand suitability and contextual targeting as well as insights. So a lot of what we do is sort of infused with insights, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be sharing some insights about what we're seeing in the market and getting Tam and Jess's reactions. We're also the only YouTube platform that has its own performance and bid optimization because using the native platforms, we weren't getting what we needed to get years ago. We built this platform. And we're also very focused on this interesting intersection between YouTube and CTV. So we're going to talk about that with these two today, which will be exciting. So let's kind of set the stage. It's been a crazy year for YouTube specifically. A lot of headlines, a lot of great innovations from YouTube, a lot of controversy for YouTube. So I just thought I'd share a couple headlines to get us started. This first Video Week headline gets at this whole idea of YouTube as a CTV platform, which we'll talk about today. And, YouTube has done some things, in the ad format which is what this headline is about. But just having the reach on CTV that it has now, which we'll talk about, is super interesting for marketers and agencies. And then the Digiday headline is really about some of the controversy that YouTube had this year around brand suitability. So we'll talk about that. And then the third headline here is just about DE&I on YouTube, which has been a challenge in the past. And now there are some interesting ways to do it that we'll talk about. So a lot of what we're going to base this conversation around, I had good chats with Tam and Jess before doing this, and we just finished doing this study that we do every year. We do a study of media agencies in the US. We've done this for, I think, 4 years now. And we asked them just, what are you thinking going into the new year? What are your budget plans? What's keeping you up at night? And we haven't released this study yet. We're going to release it in a few weeks, but we have some previews of results from that today. And, I'll sort of share some results. And as I share them, we'll get Tam and Jess's reaction, and they can say, that's what we're seeing, or that's not at all what we think. And we'll have a good discussion that way. So we'll start out with spending, talk a little bit about YouTube and CTV ad spending. So this first data point, we asked these agency leaders, and again, we have a mix of agency executives and then sort of folks at the kind of buyer and planner level. And we also have a mix of holdco agencies and independent agencies. So it's a nice mix. We also can split these results out by all those things, but these are just the overall results. In terms of people's thoughts about what they're going to do in terms of YouTube spend next year, and what they thought last year to this year, basically we're seeing a similar pattern where about half of people are saying, we see again, these are agencies, we see our brand clients increasing spend next year. About the other half say, we think they're going to still spend a lot, but it's going to be about the same. And a smaller percentage see a decrease coming into next year. So I think this is not super surprising given that YouTube is grown like crazy, but also you see some people saying steady. There's some economic, question marks still, as there were this year. So I thought I'd kick it over to Tam to start. Just, you work with a lot of amazing clients, some of which we have the pleasure of working with you. Talk a little bit about what folks are thinking about YouTube, I guess budgets in general, but about YouTube specifically going into the next year.
Yeah, I think overall we're seeing a pretty positive perspective on budgets as we move into 2024, which is exciting. I think we've all been on a bit of a roller coaster since COVID, and we're starting to see not only where our new normal is, but really the excitement about coming back to the market and communicating and connecting with consumers everywhere. I think as it comes to YouTube in particular, and we at Media Plus really think about how do we capture the attention of consumers where they watch. YouTube is absolutely an important part of that strategy, and absolutely a part of every one of our briefs with our clients. Not because they're necessarily asking per se, but because ultimately it's an important part of the mix. As we continue to see a shift and really a results-led approach even towards watch, whether you're on a linear TV or your digital screen of sorts, whether it be your computer or your phone, the ability to connect with consumers, and YouTube's capturing a lot of share of that viewership is super important. So we're definitely considering it part of our mix.
And Jess, what are you seeing? Obviously, you're not working with multiple brands like Tam is, but you've gone from brand to brand, as you mentioned. Talk a little bit about how you're approaching it, and other peers in your industry that you're talking to are thinking about it.
Yeah, I think Tam said it well, and I would build on that to say, investment follows consumer behavior. And as we see people move away from linear TV, that's a big push. But there's also sort of this, I think, bifurcation of consumer behavior where you've got really short form content and attention spans. But then on the other hand, how do you find platforms where consumers are increasingly spending their time that give you a chance to tell longer stories than maybe a TikTok or an Instagram Reels or some other sort of news feed would. So in that sense, investments following consumer behavior, but it's also following results. And I think you have, brands who are increasingly, with support of their agencies, getting smarter about what's driving results and maybe looking more closely at measurement than even, 5 years ago. And so when you have sort of both consumer behavior and results coming together, you're seeing a natural increase, particularly in YouTube spending.
Yeah, and we'll talk about later a little bit of this shift that you both mentioned towards YouTube as a performance driver, not just an awareness play, which is super interesting. Other budget question we asked them was about this year specifically and other platforms and whether agencies saw a shift for these other 4 platforms this year. And not surprising, CTV increase, linear TV decrease. We're all seeing this kind of them passing in the night and shifting places a little bit. And then, kind of interesting and an increase for TikTok, kind of a flatness for Facebook Meta folks, which, could be sort of indicative of the industry. What are you hearing from clients, Tam, on these platforms? I mean, I'm sure you're getting asked for more CTV, but I'm sure you're also still getting asked for linear TV and how that fits in, and with these other platforms, just in general, how you mix these for folks.
Yeah, we take a very agnostic kind of approach to watch. With TikTok, I think it's still. We look at TikTok almost as a search engine, and they're continuing to steal share from the behemoth that is Google. But I think when it comes to viewership, we're seeing a lot of, diversification across the platforms. And that is inclusive of linear. Like linear still has a very important role, for better or for worse. It captures a lot of attention and a lot of eyeballs. I think what's important, if you're using that as a strategy, you need to think about it like you think about YouTube. And how can I measure that? How can I not just set it and forget it? And so, one of the reasons I think our partners love when we do include YouTube in our mix is our accountability, even from a brand perspective, of being able to measure, what are we seeing in terms of search lift? What are we seeing in terms of interaction? And frankly, I think, that's where we're seeing all television, if I give it a little air quotes, headed, because, we have the tools in the tool belt to help us measure that now and help us be more responsible with our partners' investment.
Yeah. And Jess, you just mentioned that, TikTok is a platform that is useful, but it doesn't sometimes have the same storytelling, availability as a YouTube or other longer form platforms. But talk a little bit about how you're approaching these 4, behemoths.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. There's reach, and what mix do you need to get your right reach? Because some of it is where, linear TV might still get you that reach that you're not going to get, with just, some of these other channels. But content mix is the other key here, right? And especially for a brand like Tate's that's still growing and growing awareness, having multiple ways to tell stories as you're introducing more people to the brand, that diversity of content is just as important as reach sometimes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So we talked a little bit about spend. Now let's talk about, and this leads pretty well into this idea of YouTube as a CTV platform, right? Is it a CTV platform or not? So, the data shows that it is, but that doesn't mean it is in practical terms, right? So, Nielsen and Comscore both tell us that YouTube has the highest reach on CTV. Higher than Netflix, higher than Hulu, which is crazy for people, right? They say, how could YouTube have that? And now this is not YouTube TV. This is people watching YouTube, the app, or streaming regular YouTube on their TV screen. So some people would say, well, then it is a CTV platform. How could you have a CTV plan without including YouTube? The challenge is, well, there's a couple different challenges. One challenge is some people think of TV as a certain kind of programming. It's Hollywood produced, it's 30 minutes or an hour or whatever. YouTube isn't that, so that doesn't feel like TV to me. That's one challenge. The other challenge is the way agencies are set up. And so we asked this question in the survey, are you even set up to run YouTube as part of a CTV campaign? And the answer is not now, but maybe soon in general. If you look at it's hard to see all these bubbles at once, but basically it's like, how often are your teams having YouTube and CTV and linear all together versus separate? And if you look at the two bubbles all the way to the right, what they're saying is about 39% said now we have it that way, but we expect it to increase to 46% soon. Now, these numbers go way down when you isolate just bigger holdcos. So if I'm a holding company and I've got a separate team running YouTube and a separate team running CTV, that makes it challenging, right? Because my CTV team can't just start running YouTube as CTV if my YouTube team is doing it, and there might be duplication. So I guess just dumb question, easy question. Tam, starting with you again, is YouTube CTV or not?
So it absolutely is. But, going back to the point you just made, if you haven't integrated your teams who are thinking about planning watch as a behavior, you shouldn't be somebody's partner because you're not providing them with the best value that you can. Sorry, I'm giving us the plug. Jessica gave a plug of the cookies, which I am a consumer of. They are on my counter at home. Our teams are fully integrated. So they're thinking about linear the same way they think about connected TV, the same way they think about social, out of home, radio, whatever it might be. What is the connection point that helps us best reach our consumer? And maybe that's the flexibility I get to have as an independent. I'm not stuck in kind of old ways and old structures. But it's important to be thinking about first, and Jess, I love that you use the language because we talk about this all the time. Like, what is the behavior I'm trying to capture or intersect? And watch is such a big part of that mix because it allows you to utilize sight, sound, motion, all of that goodness as a way to communicate with a consumer, which is why linear TV and YouTube and social video are all part of our mix. But we need a holistic team thinking about how to lay down that investment in a productive way across those channels. Because as Jess said, you need to make sure you have the collective reach that delivers the plan. You also have to make sure that you can be accountable for that laydown and you can optimize that. And so I think that, if an agency is not currently setting themselves up to think in an integrated fashion, they're missing the mark because they're not, you should be thinking about your client's investment in that manner.
Yeah, and Jess, I know, to hand it to you, I know we've worked with you in the past where we've done some really interesting things on TV screens for brands you've worked with. Talk a little bit about how you've approached it.
This is my favorite question because the answer is yes and also no. So I think what I really appreciate about YouTube is the diversity and capabilities of the platform. So yes, it's CTV. Yes, it's just like linear TV. Yes, it's just like TikTok. Yes, it's a search engine. Yes, it is all of those things. And, I'm going to say what Tam said in it from the brand side, right? If you're a brand and you are looking at your total mix, even what we need to report up, right, to executive teams, they don't care which agency does what or who, how we're reaching this channel versus the other. So I think the trick here is how to be a really valuable agency partner who can think like a business partner, not a channel driver, right? And so, from the brand side, what that looks like is I want somebody who doesn't care if the dollar goes to Hulu or YouTube, the dollar goes to performance, right? And I think that what Tam said is exactly right. If you can set yourself up to think of the channels as sort of multi-layered inputs to what you want to achieve, you're going to be invaluable to your brand as an advertising and media partner. So I think, that's where, as Matt said, it's been really great to work with Pixability because they have such deep YouTube-specific expertise that sometimes that's a hard, these things change so quickly. To be an expert and to have the level of data, insights, targeting. I mean, Pixability's taught me more about YouTube than I probably think YouTube knows about YouTube at this point. So if you can sort of leverage insights at that level and then bring value to your brand or your client on what is driving the business the most, then it doesn't matter if it's a CTV platform or not. It's a way to reach and influence the consumer. So I could probably talk about this for the next hour alone. But I think that is what's special about YouTube. I used to get asked a lot, is YouTube a social media channel? Is it a CTV network? Like, who cares? Yes. And also yes. So that's if you don't stop me, Matt, I'm going to keep.
I love it. I love it. And just on cue, you've also set up a nice segue for the next section is what do we use YouTube for? And I think it's going to be another yes and yes and yes type of thing. So, we see a lot of people sometimes thinking too much about brand suitability and playing it way too safe and not thinking about the performance they need to get out of YouTube. And then we see other people on the other extreme where they're just thinking about performance and they're not realizing that they might be on impressions where they're not going to get the engagement and they may even do some damage. And so we ask people every year, what are your top objectives when you're advertising on YouTube? And which of those do you sort of sometimes need help with, basically? And year after year, it's these same two things. This year is no different. Brand safety and performance are the top two objectives. We got to just make sure it's safe, and we got to make sure we get the value out of it performance-wise, right? And then there's this long list of other things. We've got a partial list of it here. The interesting thing is brand suitability, which is sort of in the early years was very much confused with brand safety. There's starting to be it's moved up the charts in the last 3 years because people are starting to get the difference between, all right, a video is just completely unsafe, or a video is safe, but it's not suitable for me. It's not suitable for me because it might be, I'm an alcohol brand and this is a made for kids channel, or I am a McDonald's and this is a vegan content, or whatever the case may be. And so let's talk about suitability and performance a little bit and how that plays. And I'll just show two quick other things that are interesting. I'm going to skip ahead to this one. First, we asked the agency people, if you didn't apply the brand suitability tools that folks like Pixability have, how much of your impressions for your average client do you think would not be on content that they'd be psyched to see? And they, this is an average of their respondents. So some said, oh my gosh, 60%, some said 10%. And so on average, though, it's about a third of their content, they said, would probably not be suitable for what our client thought. Now, that said, they care very much about performance too, and how you're driving performance on this. So this is a new question that we asked this year. What are you using YouTube? We asked them how you used it in 2023 and how you're going to use it next year. 2023 being the blue bar, next year the yellow bar. And we're still seeing YouTube as an huge awareness engine, as we all know, great brand lift tools on YouTube. But what we're seeing is a little bit of a shift towards full funnel at the bottom here, and also action. And we're seeing YouTube come out with all kinds of tools to help with this. We're seeing partners like us get asked for more of this stuff. So I guess I just said a lot, but talk a little bit. I guess I'll start with you, Jess, this time, and then we'll go to Tam. Talk a little bit about sort of not the balance, but the working around the suitability and performance goals.
Yeah, I know we're going to talk measurement, which is my other favorite topic to talk about. But I think, YouTube is full funnel, whether you're designing it that way or measuring it that way. It is. Now, I know sometimes we're talking about performance. Really, are we doing click through to add to cart, and are we measuring things that way? But I think, what YouTube can do is all of it. But how do you make sure you're designing content and creative based on what your goals are? And then how do you measure to know the impact it's making? So that's one of the things I love about Brand Lift. Some of it is also YouTube can be used for everything as long as you're measuring it that way. And, marketing mix analysis, for example, may show you that actually YouTube is driving more retail sales than you realize. You just might not have a click-through metric to see that in real time. So I think it is being used as a full funnel tool, but how you measure that is part of it. And then how you structure your creative in your campaigns can help feed into that as well. So I think it's as YouTube capabilities and measurement evolves, the leveraging it and measuring it as full funnel will continue to evolve as well.
Yeah, I think with our, Ion being a growth partner for our clients, we think about YouTube absolutely as a full funnel tactic. We won't consider a YouTube buy for our partners unless we have enough budget to include things like a search lift study and other measures, because it's genuinely silly to not do those things. Because to Jess's point, you might be doing an awareness campaign, but to be able to see the impact on searches, which is, connecting the dots between impression and accountability for a purchase or whatever it might be, super important. And we can really use that as a proxy for performance, and actually make sure that, is the content that we have out in the world the right content, and being able to cross-check that in such reports. So there is so much value. I think that for us, and maybe if the team was in the room, they'd correct me, I would say about 80% of our spend on YouTube is either in awareness or consideration, because consideration on YouTube is a huge, huge pillar. And probably about 20% is more aimed towards like bottom funnel as terms of budget allocation. But across the board, I think, and we learned a lot in the linear TV space this year, because we're taking a results-oriented approach to linear, where we can see within, 10 seconds of an ad running, did that have an impact on our clients' performance on their website? So there's so many, like I said, tools in the toolkit that just help us to be smarter. I think it's a miss if, agencies and brand partners alike are not really thinking about how they use the data at their fingertips. And, Matt, like working with y'all at Pixability, we know that you provide a great suite of tools to help us understand. And so, I'd say lean into it, but work with your team to make sure that you have the right investment levels so that you can have those additional tools so that that you're being accountable.
That's great. And again, a good segue into our last little section here. We talked about how, YouTube and CTV and other things can be used for driving performance while maintaining suitability. Are there other things that we should be using advertising for beyond just driving, financial goals for a company? And this is coming up more and more of sort of the good that we can do through all the advertising dollars that flow through, that we all see on a daily basis, right? And so we asked these two questions in our survey this year. The first question is, how important is sustainability as a part of your ad programs? Like, not just is it an important topic in the world? Yes, but as part of your ad programs, is that a consideration? And we're seeing that some people, roughly a third, if you look at the yellow bar being very important, the white bar being fairly important, you see about, a little over a third of people are saying like, no, this is important, that sustainability is either, we want to make sure that we're working with platforms or creators or whatever that are not anti-sustainability or somehow promoting it, and also might not be doing damage to the environment, certain platforms that are their footprint and so forth, right? So that's interesting. I think this is something we're hearing from some agency partners, some brand partners. What was kind of more startling but not surprising, because we're all hearing this, is more and more, I think everyone that we talk to is looking for ways to support diverse communities in their ad spend. If we're going to be spending ad dollars anyways, let's find ways to support communities that we align with and want to support. And in this case, again, yellow being very important, white being fairly important. You're looking at over half of the agencies we talked to said, no, this is really important that our ad programs are actually tied to this. And so, you know, we actually just launched a program to address this because there's a challenge on YouTube. So we were hearing agencies and brands like you all come to us and say, it's hard on YouTube because we don't want to say, well, these appear to be Black creators, these appear to be LGBTQIA plus creators, et cetera. So we set out to build a network and ask the creators themselves. We went to them and we said, how should this be done? And so we've now built this network of self-identified creators. And it's the biggest network of self-identified creators. And we launched it just last month. And it's the Inclusive Media Initiative. And we had a very exciting launch at AdWeek. And, you know, we have Kellanova, Charisse Hughes from Kellanova. We have brands that love this. We've got the creators who are like, finally, we're being asked the right question. We've got a nice picture of me on stage with some of the folks that are doing this with us. But outside of what we're doing, a lot of folks are addressing this in the industry, and it's super important. And it makes me excited that it's being addressed. Again, I'll start with Jess to flip it up a little bit, but Jess, how do you manage this? Because obviously your ad budgets have to go towards directly helping the company, but how do you do it in a way that also it's doing good for the world, I guess?
Yeah, I think what's really great about, you know, all of the brands I've, you know, been able to work with is there are like incentives to be able to do both. Right. And so I think what's great about some of these initiatives that companies have put into place is we have targets and benchmarks that we need to hit in these areas of sustainability and DE&I. And that's such a benefit, right? To have those at a, you know, total company level where some of the advertising can feed into that. Right. And then I think what we've seen, too, is that does drive business results. Like it's not an either or. In fact, you know, that matters to consumers, that is something that we're taking into account into our, you know, into our brand positioning and advertising and work. So we see this as a sort of, you know, double benefit. And I think there's been challenges with, you know, even our agency partners before in knowing how to do it or how to do it in a way that is authentic. And so to have a tool or a system to say we can drive the business and we can meet company goals and we can do it in a way that's right, that's sort of a net win for everyone. So I think this is a really exciting evolution of the industry.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, Jess. I think that, you know, my partner and I, when we talk about, you know, the agency we were, you know, hoping to build and what we want to be putting back into the world, at the end of the day, we want our community here at Media Plus and our community in marketing and media at large to look like the world. And that means that you need to provide the opportunity for that to happen. I'm really proud of like our, you know, I hate to say it, but our stats here, because we are really working hard to be inclusive and find the right people to have on the bus. That's, you know, that's what we talk about often. As an agency, and I have the privilege to work with, you know, the largest independent globally. Sustainability is a priority for us. In Germany and Europe, where we're based, we actually launched a green GRP program, and it wasn't just, oh, this is going to be a Media Plus thing. We actually brought initiative in Omnicom. We invited all of the companies to participate in it because it does better for the world. It's not about us. It's about doing better for the world. So we actually work for, you know, a holding group that really is focused on doing good. So I love to see that. And there are tools from a sustainability perspective that we can use to ensure that we're, you know, reducing emissions, so to speak, from tech. And, you know, that's important. But Matt, I love that you guys have leaned into this, that you are trying to be purposeful in having inclusion, you know, because I think there's so many brilliant creators out there that are just not getting the attention that they deserve. And so I think that this will help elevate that on a lot of levels. And I love that brands like Tate's and many others are really leaning into, how can your advertising look like your customer profile? And that's what people really should be thinking about. And that's what inclusion means. And it's not about one thing. It's about, and that's a challenging thing because Jess, I think you'd probably be the first to admit, budgets are budgets. And so how do you ensure that you have a really robust and diverse creative mix like that? Sometimes choices have to be made. And so figuring out the way to do that and having tools like you guys are coming to market with, Matt, I think helps us push that forward, which, ultimately we just hope we leave the world better than we took it, right? We took it on. So I think, those steps forward it's a big sign of success, and we should keep pushing.
Absolutely. And I think we did a pretty good job of making it about 30 minutes, which is great. I'll just say to folks, and we're gonna take your questions. I'll just say first, if anyone wants the full results of the study, we'll be releasing this study in 2 weeks. Much more interesting to hear Tam and Jess talk to the results of the study. So this was great. But feel free to email me or anyone from our team if you want to see a preview of it, but we'll have the full results in a few weeks. But now, Danielle, we'd love to open it up to any questions folks have for Tam or Jess or myself.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for those fabulous insights and a lively discussion here today. As you mentioned, we do have time to take a couple questions. We're going to get to as many as we can over the next 5 to 10 minutes or so. To our audience members, please know that if we don't get to your question today, we always make sure they get forwarded over to our speakers so they have the opportunity to possibly reply offline. A couple of quick reminders here from AdWeek. Today's deck is available for download in that event resources area, so be sure to grab that. And we'll also be sending out the on-demand recording of this event a little bit later today, so keep an eye out for that as well. Now, let's dive into some of these questions. Our first question here. So you showed that there's a trend towards using YouTube more for full funnel efforts rather than just awareness. An interesting insight there. Do you think this is because awareness is hard to measure? Any thoughts on that front?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, take it.
I was going to say, I don't think awareness is hard to measure. It's absolutely something that you have to commit to as an advertiser, but it's not hard to measure. I think because we are talking about YouTube, I think the beauty of YouTube is that we can measure, effective reach and frequency, but we can also measure interaction, whether that be at the consideration level or actual intent to purchase. And so there are a lot of tools that allow you to measure. And I know whether you're working with Pixability or another brand that helps you kind of dive into the YouTube world, they do have toolkits that help you kind of get to that. So please ask that question of your team so that you're not, missing the boat on having that effectiveness.
Nice. Anything to add from your end, Matt?
No, she covered it perfectly. I thought, I think the brand lift and search lift tools from Google are great. They're fairly out of the box, but there are definitely some ways to use it that take a little bit of art in addition to the science. But I completely agree with Tam. There's a lot you can do to measure any step in the funnel.
Nice. All right. So looking at our next question here, someone asks, can you talk about how agencies and brands should approach Google's VAC ad format since it uses GVP inventory? Might be good to review those acronyms in answering this question, but any thoughts there?
I mean, I can start with this one. I don't know if Tam or Jess want to go down this path, but so VAC is video action campaigns. That's a type of performance format from Google that it's an evolution of an old format they had called TrueView for Action. And basically what this question is asking, I showed at the beginning some headlines of some controversy in the past year. What video action campaigns do is it's a format that finds performance wherever it can find it. And they include Google Video Partner Inventory, which is video inventory that's not on YouTube itself. And so what it's doing is saying, this is your KPI. I'm going to find that KPI wherever I can find it. And it's going to sometimes be outside of YouTube. Some people do not want to be on GVP inventory because it's not YouTube. It's mostly mobile app inventory. Some of it is not the kind of inventory that certain brands want. Some of it is. And so I think the idea, what we tell our clients is use VAC if performance is your number one priority and contextual, surroundings are less of a priority for you. If you just say, I need to drive sales right now, I don't care where it appears, it's an amazing tool, and there is a lift in what you'll get performance-wise. But I also think there are ways you can drive performance, and our teams do every day for Tam's clients and for Jess's teams, that you don't need to use it. So it's really up to the brand and agency to choose whether they want to use VAC for a specific campaign. We are seeing an increase in usage of it for sure.
Got it. Thanks for walking us through that. Our next question here, switching gears slightly, we have an interesting question. Tam, I'm going to throw this one to you. As an educator for the college advertising program, I wonder if you all have suggestions for how we prepare students. What are qualifications that you're looking for?
Yeah, you and I saw your question and I wanted to answer it because I think it's super important as an industry leader to help educate our young people of tomorrow. For us, we're really looking for, there's 4 things we look at Media Plus that's super important for our talent that are joining us. One is human, that they need to be able to understand the world as whole people, because that's best how we communicate and best how we share the great products we have to share, like Tate's cookies. 2 is curiosity. And I would say from a young educator's perspective is helping your students to be curious, want to learn more. All of them should go online and find out all about YouTube today and why it's important, and find out about creators and what they're doing and what's different. So curiosity is key to that and really important. 3rd, they need to be collaborative. It's not about me, it's not about it's about we. And I think, both Jess and Matt would agree, because we talk about this all the time. This is a collective, collaborative environment that is advertising. And as a young person, if you want to come into the space, you need to be really thinking about that. Last, our own ethos is to be unbound. And I think as young people, just thinking about why does this matter to me? Why is this interesting? I want all of your students to love what they do. And so you need to find something that leans into that passion. So I'm happy, by the way, even if you want to follow up, and I'm happy to do a class with your students, because I think it's important that we help them understand why this is different and why this is a great business to be working in.
So well said. Thanks for that, Tam. Our next question here, Jess, I'm going to pose this one to you. How have you measured the effectiveness of YouTube campaigns in the past? What's your approach there?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. What's great about YouTube is there are so many pulse points along the way, like the brand health studies or the search lift studies. Those are great and really helpful to continue to iterate on your programs. What I find is there are a couple of key things that tend to drive sort of a broader view of business impact. And one of those is marketing mix analysis. Not everybody can do one of these. If you're an agency, not all of your clients are going to do one of these. But one of my favorite examples on YouTube's capability is, when I joined Kind, YouTube was one of the bottom ROI drivers. And so there was a hesitancy to invest more in the platform. We came in and Pixability helped with this and just revamped what content we were putting on YouTube, our creative mix, how we were measuring, how we were targeting. And in 1 year, it went from one of the bottom drivers to then the next year in marketing mix analysis. It was the number 1 ROI driver for the entire business. So higher than TV, higher than search. It was the number 1. And then it stayed there for the next, as long as I was at Kind. And I think what's really powerful about that is, 1, if you're not doing it quite right, you might get sort of a false negative, right, on the power of the platform. And then 2, I think it shows that again, what you might see in a pulse check or what you might see in initial early data might not be the whole story. So you have to be careful that even these great little sort of indications, that's not going to be sort of the full impact to the business. So that's one of the reasons I'm such a big believer in the power of the channel and the platform, and why you really need to look at all of the collective data and measurement and not just sort of one or two pieces.
Super well said. Thanks for walking us through your approach there, Jess. Our next question, I'm going to toss this one to you, Tam. Have you had cases where you had an advertiser that didn't recognize the value of YouTube and maybe needed to be convinced it would work for their audience?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and honestly, like that's I think why I have a job. I think our team is their whole purpose is to help our partners best understand, what channels, what partners themselves, what tactics, what we should be doing to help their investment go as far as it can go. And our world changes every day. So even like if you think about linear TV, or you think about connected TV, or you think about the way you use YouTube, it literally changes on some front every day. So it is our privilege to help understand that and really share that perspective with our partners, because they don't have the time to be thinking about all of those changes themselves. And so, to answer the question bluntly, yes, we have to educate all of the time. But I do think that's part of our job. And what's been amazing is that our partners really lean into also teaching kind of the world at large. And we have a lot of brands that have been willing to get on stage and willing to talk with kind of the world about their use of these channels and why it's helped their business grow. Because I think, Jess said it best, like she's looking for a growth partner, and our whole perspective is to be exactly that, be a growth partner. And you have to understand, not only how YouTube impacts like your growth, but how does, Meta, how does TikTok, how does linear TV or out of home or radio, whatever it might be. And so I think I challenge all of our agencies out there that they should be thinking about how they're continually, educating their partners to be the best they can be and also do their job and focus on what they need to focus on. So, yes.
Awesome. Thanks for that.
I'll just add one quick thing to that too, because I see another question from someone asking about YouTube as a B2B tool for B2B companies. I know that we, and I'm sure Tam and probably not Jess, but gets asked by B2B companies, should I be using YouTube? Is it just for consumer brands? Is it just for the Tates of the world? By the way, I'd also love to hear how many people are eating Tate's cookies right now while they're watching this, because I've had multiple people tell me from my company say they're going to eat Tate's cookies while they're watching this. But yeah, for a B2B brand, I think Tam's point is absolutely right on the money too. We have to explain to them that it's not just a place where people go for consumer information. I know that I'm a B2B brand, but I know that people, when they're trying to find out about anything, they now trust, creators on YouTube and so forth. So we've worked with a lot of B2B brands, and there are great ways you can target people. Obviously, LinkedIn is an amazing targeting tool for B2B, but YouTube has some really cool ways to do it as well. So it's a cool question.
Yeah, totally. No, just to read that question out for our audience so they know what it was. Obviously, most people are consumers and watch video, but do you have insights or opinions when it comes to B2C versus B2B or retail products versus service industries? Tam, jump in there. Give us your thoughts.
No, I was gonna say we were literally on a phone call this morning with one of our partners, and they have both initiatives that are B2B as well as B2C. And at the end of the day, they're like, but everybody that you're targeting from a B2B perspective is a consumer too. So I think it's about how do you use the toolkit to deliver the message you need to deliver at a consumer level, but then what are the tactics you can use that actually allow you then to re-engage that potential prospect from a B2B perspective. We use a lot of the tools in the YouTube toolbox as well as others to not only re-engage, but there's some really smart strategies where you can be showing your video specifically to a consumer who's searching for this term. It's a really great way to be able to get what I would consider mass awareness strategies against a really focused audience at an affordable investment. So I think your teams just really need to be clever and thoughtful about strategies to deliver on that, but it can absolutely be used in both cases.
Yeah, totally. Jess, anything to add from your
I
perspective?
think the only other thing I'll add is almost more from the content side, right? Which is, look, I'm a little bit lucky in that I can show a really delicious cookie and get a quick message across kind of right away. B2B often takes more storytelling and education, and that is where, from a content perspective, YouTube's going to provide you with sort of an opportunity to sell a B2B story in a way that other channels won't, married with what Tam said about the targeting. So I think for that, you're not going to almost find a better platform.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add on top of that is, like, we were having a conversation with a client recently and they said, but like, we need to make sure we're focused on this type of content. I'm like, or is it that we need to hit that consumer when they're actually in a relaxed mindset, that content will resonate with them? So that might not be while they're in their workplace, but it actually might be when they're at home and then they have an aha moment and they go, oh, well, I should be thinking about that. So yes, let's reach out. So I'm definitely one that's in the camp that we should be using, YouTube as well as other channels that we have access to be able to have that conversation. And just, I think it's up to your strategists and growth partners to really think about how you can be smart about doing it and make sure you stay within your budget parameters.
Well said. I think that's the perfect note for us to wrap up on here. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for questions today. I'd like to thank our speakers, Matt, Jess, and Tam, as well as our sponsor, Pixability. Some final reminders from AdWeek. Make sure you download those slides from the Event Resources tab. Keep an eye out for the full report that we've been discussing today from Matt and team, so that will be available in a few weeks. And just keep an eye out as well for the on-demand recording of the event. We'll send that out later today. And if you enjoyed today's webinar, be sure to check out the AdWeek webinars calendar to learn more about our upcoming events at adweek.com/webinars. Again, huge thank you to our speakers today for being here and for letting us pick your brains during this Q&A session. Thank you to our audience for joining us. And as always, we look forward to seeing everyone at an upcoming AdWeek webinar. Thank you all.